'Cause it's not about you, it's not about me, and gathering all we can see. It's not about yours, it's not about mine, or possessions we must leave behind. To figure out life and understand all it can be. Just know that it's not about you, it's not about me. Podcasting from a town called Manalapan, New Jersey. This is That Oneness Guy, podcast covering the many aspects and elements that embody oneness. I am your host, Danny Rongo, and yes, I am that oneness guy. As an author, a singer-songwriter, and a podcaster, I continue to share my message of oneness. So let's get right back into podcasting. If you've been following along here in season 4, you know that I've had some really cool, engaging, and inspiring chats with my guests. These humanitarians, as I like to call them, all share their passion and insight as either social media influencers, radio hosts, holistic advocates, or they run charitable organizations, and also fellow spiritual authors. These individuals are taking measures to help society, to help me, to help you, and to help our world in general, and to add awareness to the constant rise in oneness that we're all getting to witness and experience. Now, they accomplish this through their words, their message, and their actions. And my guest for this latest episode falls perfectly into those categories. So let me tell you a little about Ellen K. Feldman. She is an author, a psychotherapist, lawyer, and mother who has, like you, experienced the pain of loss and the confusion that accompanies painful life experiences. She has learned that our painful experiences can act as a springboard to growth. She is first and foremost committed to helping others see light through the darkness in their lives and helping them transform their pain into living a life full of joy, connection, purpose, and abundance. Her new book, A Path of Oneness, was written with Ellen's mission in mind. She wrote this book for you, yes, you, to arm you with a new perspective and tools to help you transform your life for the better. Now, let me tell you, my friends, I have read this book, and let me say that as an author, a podcaster, and a messenger of oneness myself, I cannot say that I have ever read a more heartfelt and inspiring message of oneness in my life. She lives in Toronto, Canada, with her family. So, for my final episode here in 2021, which will conclude this season 4, my friends in oneness, please say hello to my friend, Ellen K. Feldman. Hello there, Ellen.
Hi, Danny. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, please. It's a treat, my friend. I'm so excited about this episode because as we've gotten to know each other, it's just going to scream of oneness, and then there's so many ways. And like I just said, I love the book. I'm inspired by the book. I've got so many ideas from the book. So, like we're going to delve into that. But as I like to start off the podcast, Ellen, I want to know, what is your story? Tell my listeners the path that led you to this book and your path of oneness.
My path of oneness, I've been on a spiritual journey as we all have, whether we're conscious of it or not, my whole life. But it was in 2018 that I went from being somebody who had quite a well-developed sense of intuition to experiencing more inside of myself. And what I mean by more is I started hearing things. I started hearing messages of love. I started hearing guidance. I started hearing things about what would come into my life, about what would come into the world. And most of all, I began hearing messages about oneness. And when I say that I heard these messages, it's my understanding that I'm hearing, God, and I'm using God as not a religious term, but just a name for what I call something higher. my celestial team of guidance, if you will. And regardless of what the topic was that I was hearing guidance about inside of myself, it always came with an underlying message of, this message is coming to you with love because we are you, not because we love you as something separate from us, but we are giving you this guidance. We are giving you this advice. We are giving you this unconditional, unearned love as a non-conditional testament to the fact that we are one.
I just love that. I love that for the fact that you were called in such a fashion like that, because you don't speak to too many people who have actually say that their message was just channeled through them, Ellen, and like how it comes directly from that source. And I specifically love how the message you received was that they're not different from you.
Mm-hmm. So everything that I receive in these communications, I'm clairaudience, which means that I can hear guidance inside of myself.
I wanted to ask you about that term, because I remember in our first conversation you did use it. I'm like, I had to write it down real quick. I said, what did she just say right there? Clair audience, or yeah. So tell me a little more about being, what's it called in
clairaudience means
clairaudience. Okay, it's beautiful.
Clairaudient means there's clairvoyance, there's clairaudience, and clairsentience. So clairsentience is something that we all have access to. It's a knowing inside of yourself that something just is, that doesn't come from a rational brain-based knowing. It's a deeper guttural knowing inside of yourself. That's clairsentience. Okay. Clairvoyance is a seeing. Some people see images, see numbers, see words, and I do see things inside of myself. Mm-hmm. But the number one gift that I stepped into in 2018 was a hearing inside of myself. I'm able to converse with deceased loved ones, my own and my clients' deceased loved ones. I'm able to communicate with archangels inside of myself. I'm able to communicate with ascended masters, which is just another name for a type of celestial being that's here to guide us on our spiritual path.
And this is all relatively recent, you said, right? You said 2018?
2018. So only a few years that I've been experiencing these gifts.
Wow. So like it lays credence to the fact that when we say that there's no specific time and place, like people always wonder, I don't want to say always wonder, but like so many people that I speak with, Ellen, always say, when am I going to find my calling? How am I going to find my calling? And there's no real answer to that. I always just try to say, just try to stay receptive, right? Because if you are receptive to your guidance, to your higher self, to your God, whatever you want to call that source again, that openness, that connection is more likely to show itself. But people nowadays get caught in with struggling with blockage in so many different facets of their life that it puts a block up on that connection on what can flow to you, right?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think that you're spot on, and it's something that I actually talk about in the book, is that there is guidance available to all of us, and that the more we're open to it, the more we start perceiving signs that are present of it. And there are some very commonly talked about signs of that. Some people look at the clock and on a regular basis we'll see repeating numbers. They'll look up and it'll be 444, or 222, or 1111. Somebody will be sitting with a question and a song will come on that will seem to be speaking directly to them, as though their question, right? Synchronicities.
Yeah.
Is one method of the universe communicating with us.
So let me ask you something. I'm just sitting here thinking, how big, Ellen, was the gap between that first time that you sensed that, okay, I'm receiving something, no matter what it was, but what was the gap between, say, just that first one and then that second one? Was it like ramped up? Was it kind of like parallel to like the level of that first, channeling per se, or, or do you sense something far greater and say, wow, now I really know I'm onto something here. Like, was there a gap there, or was it?
Yeah, so for me, I went through a massive awakening. I was going through a major transition in my life. I was going through a separation from my husband, and I had something called a Kundalini Awakening, which is when there's a massive amount of energy that flows through your spine and up through your crown, through the top of your head. And it's accompanied by feelings, sensations throughout your body, and just like a feeling of euphoria would be the best way of describing it. And I would say that my first experience of true channeling happened during this Kundalini awakening, and it just opened some kind of a floodgate, and I started hearing, seeing, and knowing things on just
Really?
a constant basis after
How
that.
are you spelling that, Ellen? I'm just curious. Kundalini? Is that how?
Kundalini is Kundalini,
Uh-huh.
Kundalini.
Kundalini. Wow. See, I would love to be able to just experience that like once. I guess, obviously everyone's on our own journey, but and I do get signs. I'm very receptive, especially as I've gotten older and gotten more involved with my spirituality. So I'm so receptive to my signs, but they're more just from an intuitive nature. And I've learned so many ways throughout life you have to listen to your intuitive side. People, so many ways they cast it aside and say, oh, it was like it was just a coincidence. But I've learned over the years from my specific guru, Dr. Wayne Dyer, that there is no such thing as coincidence. Even if you take the word coincidence and break it down, it meant to coincide. So there's like nothing off or, happenstance about coincidence. There is no such thing. And then he goes on to say that there are no accidents in a perfect universe, which I still use to this day. And I just love that. But I've been so attuned to my, intuitive side, because so many times, like, I'll just get that little nudge. And that's how I describe it to my friends and listeners. I'll say, they go, but Dan, what does it feel like? I say, when you feel intuition, it's first of all, it's a physical thing, right? Like you feel something in your gut. That's why they say follow your gut, right, Ellen?
Right.
Yeah. So like it's something that you feel. And now that even ties back to the whole talk about us being beings of energy or energetic beings, because you're actually feeling something. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's your intuitive nature. That's your higher source reaching out and either showing you a sign, pointing you in a direction, or telling you to put on the brakes in life, especially like if something happens, like to use myself as an example, to have a cancer diagnosis comes in, boy, was that a sign? Or if anything, I'm like, all right, something's got to change in the life, oh, Dan, you know what I mean? So I took that one seriously, to say the least. But like to go along with what you're saying here about just receiving those images and the audience part of it too, the clairaudience, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I just want to, bring it full circle back to how that all
Sure.
of this kind of out there stuff, these out there experiences led me to the book, because it wasn't. I'm going to level with you. It wasn't my conscious choosing to write this book. I'd had a desire to write a book from the time I was quite young, but there was a message inside of myself that it was time to write a book. And not only was it time to write a book, it was time to write a book about oneness. So no less than 4 mediums had told me that I would write books since that awakening that I had in 2018.
Really?
But
Wow.
every time I sat down at my computer, I was just frozen. I just couldn't put words to paper. And one day in late 2019, not 2019, 2020, I received a message inside of myself. It's time to take a week off of work. You're going to write a book. And I sat down, I took the week off of work and I sat down at my laptop and something called automatic writing started happening. My fingers just started moving, but my brain did not have a conscious awareness of what word was going to come out next. And I sat down at my computer, and 1 week later I got up and A Path of Oneness had been written.
That is amazing. And let me tell you something, like after I read it and as I was reading it, I even was talking to my wife, Andrea, about it. I was like, I can sense how. Now, granted, I just met you just a few weeks ago, and we're getting to know each other, so I can't say that I know exactly what your writing tone would be per se, or like how your language might come across as you write. Like as an author, we like tend to look into stuff like that, like what's the tone of the book. But what inspired me was that I was able to sense, Ellen, that there's a divine essence to those words. You can just see it, because not that it's hard for anyone else to write the words. It's not as if you're using a high-end language or, just stuff that's hard to gravitate towards. No, it's all relatable. But like I said, and I could just use my own books as an example. Now, granted, I'm reading them and I've read them, obviously plenty of times, but I wasn't selected. I wasn't channeled to write my words. I wrote my words from my heart. I was inspired by what I was living, but it wasn't channeled through. And then when I read a book like yours, I can say, wow, that's why I was totally blown away by your book. And I'm just so excited for you. And I can't wait to help you put that out there and market that as soon as it comes out, which actually leads me, to the next question that we had here. We're talking about, so what is a path of oneness? Tell my friends, what do you consider as, for your time, like what is a path of oneness?
A Path of Oneness. First of all, thank you so much for everything that you said. It means so much to me.
No problem.
Not just that you loved the book, but that you were able to glean the divine nature of the messages that
Absolutely,
were
Ellen.
transmitted.
Absolutely, I was like, to me, it was so obvious. And again, like I said, I'm just getting to know you. Not that you wouldn't write those exact words, but there's something about the tone when you're reading a spiritual book. Perfect example is all of Neil Donald Walsh's books, all the Conversation with God. I read every one of those books that came out, 30 odd years ago.
Right.
I read every single one, and just reading those words, I knew immediately. And, there's always been the skeptics about his series of books. But like when I read it, I never questioned it. I said, that sounds like, a divine essence to me if there ever was one,
Well, I can tell you that that the introduction that was written in my tone is extremely different from everything that follows in the main body of the book. And I could not have written that book. I could not have written it. I could have come up with information about oneness, but I could never have written A Path of Oneness. And I hope that comes through to anybody who read it. But what is a path of oneness? We're all on a path. Some people conceive of their journey through life as a path that they're walking, and some people don't. But regardless of our perception, we're all walking a path. And the deepest truth, as you and I both know, and as we're trying to disseminate as a message to everyone who will listen, our deepest truth is that we are all one. That although we experience the miracle of separation, and it is indeed a miracle, that if there's only energy in the universe, and there's one energy, that I could be over here in this body having these thoughts and these perceptions, while you're over there in these feelings, and you're over there in that body having a completely different experience.
Exactly. And even how you just worded it, Ellen, as a miracle, that's something that I've never thought about in such terms, but it truly is, especially if we come to the knowing, which I like to call it. It's not a belief, it's a knowing. I've always said that there's a huge difference between a belief and a knowing. A belief to me carries, albeit small, some shred of doubt, like, oh, I believe I might be able to jump off the high dive, or I believe I can ride, a knowing is an internal conviction. Like, I know I can get on a bicycle and ride it. I know I can, do certain things. So, but to have that knowing that we come from oneness, that's when you really view, to your point, this world of contrast, this life of contrast, I should say, or this life of duality is a miracle, because that's not what we are. So to experience, right?
Yeah.
I
No,
love that
exactly.
concept. And it is a miracle.
It is a miracle. And so walking a path of oneness means walking a path where you make as the platform on which you stand the knowledge that you are one with everything and everyone. It's a tall order, and it's a path that we return to again and again. And I say return because I know personally I veer from that path on a regular basis, from that knowing of oneness.
Absolutely.
But I come back to it. So what do I mean in more specific terms? Well, one of the things that the book talks about in some depth is a knowing that if I am one with, and I'm going to keep using the word God, but I really mean God / spirit / universe,
exactly.
/ whatever we call the totality of energy in the universe, rather than something that religion taught us about God.
Sure.
But when we come back to a knowing that we are God, then everything that is happening in our lives is happening according to a plan that we created.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a plan of some higher deity imposed upon us. It's our plan. And if everything is unfolding according to our plan, then everything is as it is meant to be. That doesn't mean roll over and just allow injustices to persist. It means take action.
Mm-hmm.
It means that the way it is in this moment is something that we can accept as a part of the plan before asking the question, and what do I do to steer life in the direction that I intended to go for what comes next?
So then, like, part of the actual miracle of experiencing the contrast and, again, the duality, the other side of that miracle is that we get to choose, right? We get to make choices within that. So when you add that to the conversation, okay, so I'm this spiritual being here in a human body, and that alone is a miracle. And now I get to choose. I get to make decisions on what I want to do and how I want to do it and what I want to follow through with in life. It just adds more to what you're saying about that whole miracle, and it's beautiful, man.
It's so beautiful. It's all about layers of truth. It is a truth that I am a human being named K Feldman, and I'm a mother, and I'm a bunny owner, and I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm inhabiting a body. That is a layer of truth. But I am also, as another layer of truth, the soul that animates this human named Ellen. And another layer of truth is that I am the totality of energy that is experiencing one slice of reality, called this soul that has traversed life after life after life.
You're the awareness. Yeah.
I am the awareness that animates the whole thing.
Oh, man. We're going to be in touch a lot, my friend, going forward. I could see that. I just love your whole take on it. I love everything that you're saying. It just, again, like I've always said, my vision of oneness isn't anything more than it's just my experience. So I'm just saying my words. I'm sharing my experience, as are you, as have been, the Wayne Dyers, the Deepak Chopras, the Eckhart Tolles, the Louise Hayes, everybody. We're all sharing like our own version of things, but everything comes back to that one commonality, which is oneness. And I'm starting to see it more and more. I don't know about you, but like when I do some searches nowadays and just plug in the word oneness, I see an awful lot more than I did 5 years ago. awful lot more.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I actually, I have an endorsement for my book by an author named Helen A. Wabe, and she's the author of a beautiful, beautiful book that I recommend called The Science of Channeling. And
Wow.
so
Okay. I'll look it up.
she's a scientist, and she writes prolifically and researches channeling experiences.
Really?
And what I love about what she says in her book is that again and again, channeling experiences far and wide across different cultures, across, geography, people continue to communicate, number one, a message of interconnectedness. So she doesn't use
Yep.
necessarily the language of oneness, but she speaks of again and again and again, there being this common root of interconnectedness of all being at the forefront of channeled messages.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. And just think if even the smallest percentage of the population bought into something along those lines, just that understanding that there is the interconnectedness, that there is oneness, that we are bonded inherently from our source. Man, just think of how much better things would be.
Think about how different relationships would be.
Absolutely.
It's I'm a couples therapist, right? So I work with people who are experiencing relational discord all the time. And think how different a perspective it is when you import the notion of oneness. You're not just connected to the person, to your spouse who's yelling at you about the dishes. You're not just in love with that person. There isn't just a bond between you. You're them and they're
Amen.
you. And the thing that they're doing that is causing you so much distress is a part of what your soul chose to experience in this life.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that said in so many ways over the years, like your biggest adversary is always your greatest partner in this journey, because that's where you'll learn the most.
Absolutely.
Right. So listen, I want to touch on a couple specifics from the book. As I was reading it, I was just starting to write down, different things that struck me. One is, I guess a quote that you said that I just love because it means a lot to me, but you said, oneness is remembering, not learning. Now you started to touch on that a little while ago, but share a little more about that concept, about how oneness is remembering. Like I always like to say, we have to remember that we're one. You can actually separate the word remember, and we have to member. We have to rejoin with the concept that we are one. So tell my friends a little more about oneness is remembering, not learning.
I love that. I've just vaulted that deep in my heart. Remembering. That is so beautiful, Danny. It's a path of remembering and not learning, even though our conscious mind might tell us otherwise, because it is our deepest energetic truth. And just because when we come into a life and we go through a process of forgetting, right? The average person does not remember that they have lived other lives. But just because it's not in our conscious awareness doesn't make it not so.
Of course. Well said. That's a great point.
And just because our experience of coming from being a part, consciously a part of the collective, consciously a part of the oneness of energy, is not something that we consciously remember, does not mean that it isn't so. So when we step into a space of knowing that we are one, all we are doing is stepping back into a space of reopening ourselves to what was always our truth.
What was always there.
What was always there. We just a veil is descended over our eyes when we step into a human life, for the most miraculous of reasons, right?
Yeah.
Because it allows for that process of rediscovering.
Yeah. Well, it gets back to all of the miracle stuff we just mentioned. Exactly, because it is a miracle, and we just become so accustomed to this life, to this contrast, and we just drift away over time. And especially like as we get older, especially like if these aren't the topics of discussion when we're children, chances are it's not going to be anything through our schooling, and chances are it's not going to be anything as we join the workforce. Finding spirituality is something that's going to come to people like we mentioned earlier, when people follow their intuition, and that initiates that path of oneness, and that path back to oneness too, if you may. And that's how we start to remember over time, like, now this is making a little more sense to me. It begs us to ask questions when we uncover a spirituality, which I like to talk about most. And that's what made me really weigh in the conversation between spirituality and also religion. And I was like, all right, I'm being taught this, meaning religion, and I'm finding out and discovering this, meaning spirituality. So of course, that side of the equation is going to weigh more to me, because I'm doing the work and I'm finding out about it.
I do subscribe to a religion.
Sure.
And I believe that I subscribe to what are universal spiritual principles. And however somebody finds a path to something higher, to something more meaningful, to something beyond
Rock and roll,
what our eyes tell us, I support it. I embrace it. I do not find it divisive. I believe that all pathways to that which is higher are valid, and a pathway to oneness.
Absolutely. And you're right with that too. Something else too that stuck out to me when you said that the path of oneness is not an idea. It is an energetic reality, and especially the word energetic there, because we talk so much in our circles about being an energy, being part of that quantum field that we know that we emanate from. So maybe you want to expand a little more about that, because some people reading it might think of the path of oneness as a concept or an idea.
Right.
But it is, to your point, it is an energetic reality. So maybe you can tell my listeners a little more about that concept.
Yeah. So the way a path of oneness is written, which again, I never could have conceived before it was written, that this is what the book would be about. But the book is fundamentally about energy. Yes, the topic is oneness, but it is like a treatise on energy, and it's all about how we are energy and the laws of energy that apply to us and to everything in the created and non-created world, because we are energy. So I'm talking primarily about the law of attraction.
Yes.
And so there are other ways that the idea of oneness can be explored, and writers such as the ones you cited, Deepak Chopra and others, have written about oneness from other perspectives. But a path of oneness makes the case, one, that everything in the universe is energy, and two, that substantiates why there is oneness, because energy is not created nor destroyed. It simply flows from one form to another. We learn that in grade school in physics class, right? So we know that kinetic energy flows into solar and, thermal energy flows into potential energy, et cetera, et cetera. And the energy that we are flows from one form manifested as, my body, my, and my soul into other forms of energy when it's time for them to move on into another form. Yeah. Now, the part of the book that we haven't talked about is, the book makes the case for how we are energy and we are oneness. And because we are all one, it looks at a whole bunch of different ideas. It looks at how relationships can be treated differently and experienced differently because of our oneness with each other. It looks at the idea of us as humans being one with non-physical entities, and how knowing that we are one with non-physical entities can allow us to access the guidance available to us through those non-physical entities. And it looks at I don't know how to put this delicately, the impending disaster that climate change is threatening every
Sure.
single life form on this planet. And it looks at, the book talks about miracles, and it makes the case for how miracles are possible from an energetic standpoint. And it looks at what is necessary to allow more abundance, more miracles to come to us to curtail the disaster that we frankly are already experiencing. Not territory that most spiritual books go. Most spiritual books sort of stay in the domain of kind of feel good talk. But the real message of the book is that God wants, because God is one with us, God wants us to live the most abundant, the most fulfilling, the most beautiful lives possible. And that there is currently a factor, climate change, that is threatening every form of life on this planet from successfully living out the most abundant, most, beautiful life possible. And that there's an energetic case to be made that when we step into a space of seeing that we are one with all that is, was, and will be, that we raise our vibration, and that by raising the vibration through the law of attraction, we create an opening to receive more abundance and miracles that we desperately need at this time.
Yeah. And I also think that some of the more recent happenings here, like with the pandemic and such like that, I've been tying all of these in, like you said, with climate change. It seems like everything has been coming to like a boiling point, if you may. You know what I mean? Like everything's reaching a climax, and not in a good way, unfortunately. But it's something's got to change, and we're here at this time and place during it for these very specific reasons. For a book like A Path of Oneness, for argument's sake, to help us address it all. And as we talk about energy, I've always had a difficult time trying to explain to the people that I speak with, and I try to spell it out in different ways in my books and in my message in general, because it's not easy. But for me to talk about oneness, and especially when we have the two sides of the equation, like we said, the duality, there's the physical side and there's the spiritual side. When you talk about the spiritual side, you have to lean towards energy. You have to explain that spirit is energy. And the simplest way that I've done it, which I've explained in my book, in my first book actually, is something as simple as, you have a friend who lives on the other side of your country, and you just happen to be thinking about him or her on just, matter of factly, you just on an afternoon thinking about your friend. And a couple seconds later, the phone rings and it's that person. And you go, oh my God, I was just thinking about you. And that's not an accident. Again, as we go back to that last thing we said, there are no accidents in the perfect universe. That person caught your vibration, caught your energy, and decided to think about you and pick up the phone and called you. And people, again, might look at that and say, oh, that's just coincidence. No, it's not. People catch energy. They can catch it just like catching a cold. You get a vibe. Speaking of just like catching a cold, just last night, I was watching another podcast that had Dr. Bruce Lipton on it, who I'm becoming more and more a fan of. And he was talking about energy, and the way that he got involved to say it, Ellen, it makes so much sense. He says, if you don't think that we're beings of energy, he goes, what's the first thing that you say whenever you're sick? Oh, my energy is real low. Oh, I have no energy. What do you think that's telling you? Bingo, you're saying it. That's the first thing out of most people's mouth. Oh, I have no energy, man. I'm really sick. Exactly. Because you have blockage that caused either a dis-ease to your system to some degree, lowered your vibration, lowered your energy. What happened? Weakened your immune system, and you contracted some form of illness, maybe even just a cold or something. But that's exactly how that happens.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So it's something that, I talking about being energy, when that sounds to some people like just a spiritual idea rather than a basic fundamental truth, I always like to come back down to the science of it.
Yeah.
Our cells break down to atoms, and atoms break down to subatomic particles, which are negatively and positively charged particles. Right? We are physically,
and it's all energy.
Physically, we are energy. We are undeniably, from a scientific perspective, and Albert Einstein stands as a testament to it being a farce that there's a division between science and spirituality.
One of my favorite quotes of all time. He calls it the disillusion. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. He was both the greatest scientific mind of our time and one of the greatest spiritual thinkers and writers of our time as well.
Yeah. And
not everyone knows that.
He actually came from the science, from the field of science. It helps to, it helps to share our message from that side of the equation, because a lot of people say, all right, well, what's the science of it? Here's the science of it. And then obviously we have, like we talked about Deepak. He's been putting out books about, all this for years now. About how, like, if we break down the molecules, what's there? It's just an energy. When you break it down, it's nothing. It's energy moving. Even if you look at a rock, if you take that rock and break it down and then look further and further with the highest powered microscopes, what will you find? You'll find space, empty space.
Yeah.
It's energy moving at a very slow vibration, as are we, but we have the ability to raise our vibrations with our thoughts and such. And therein lies the difference between us and a rock.
Right.
Right.
So one of the most important messages in the book is that because we are energy, we are not bound by the finite, by the finite nature of our physical life. Right? The energy that I am, people think that it's about the soul. The soul is a created entity. The soul, at least this is this is not my opinion. This is the message that was transmitted through me. And I speak of it as truth because it came to me in that way. But people speak of the soul as being that which is infinite. It's the energy. It's the energy that the created soul is made of, that is infinite. Energy is what we are. Energy is where we come from. Energy is what we return to. And whatever happens in this life, we will be fine. The energy that we are will be fine.
We'll be fine.
But the layer of reality of our human experience matters. It matters. Oh, I cry every time I get to this point in the book, rereading it. It matters that people are dying by drowning. It matters that creatures of all types are dying by burning, of famine. It matters.
Yeah.
That pain is my pain. I may not be consciously aware through my human senses of that person who's burning in a fire, of that koala bear in Australia who's dying by fire. But I am energetically them, and their suffering is my suffering.
Is your suffering. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. You know what else I'm looking at here? I remember writing down, how you said, learning to talk to God, Ellen. Expand a little about that if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, the message in the book is not intended to suggest that there should be a uniformity in the method of communicating with God. If one believes in God, or whatever name you would put to whatever is higher, whatever is beyond this physical existence. But there is a message that emerges from the book about how, from an energetic perspective, God can hear us. And when we talk to God, enumerating for God that which is wrong with what we have, energetically, it's not a question of God doesn't care. It's not a question of God thinks that you're complaining and turns away. Like, there's no emotional component to it. From an energetic perspective, when you embrace the ideology that all is as it is meant to be, you energetically vibrate in a place at a higher level where you draw in more abundance to yourself. It's the law of attraction. The law of attraction is really at the foundation of what the book rests on. Because we are energy, the law of attraction always applies.
Absolutely.
And the law of attraction from the perspective of a path of oneness isn't about finding the hack to convince the universe, to convince God to give you, that lottery winning or that man of your dreams. It's not about finding the perfect incantation to get that thing that you really deserve to get. It's about vibrating at a frequency that draws in that which is similar to your frequency to you.
And we call that alignment.
We call that being in alignment. So when we talk about speaking to God in the book, the book says, what God says through me in the book is, by all means, when you are sad, pour your heart out to me and I will cry with you. When you are mad, come and scream at me and I will be there to hold you. But in conjunction with emoting all of those things, at least on some level, know that life as it is unfolding according to the plan. And the plan is always for abundance, whether it looks that way or not. And the more you embrace the idea that things are unfolding according to the plan, the more the plan for abundance can unfold.
Sure. Because so many people that would read into that say, well, is it just a form of prayer? And I would say, well, absolutely, but so much of society is just geared to think about prayer as what you were saying earlier about asking for specific things, or asking for favors, or asking someone to be healed, or asking yourself to be healed. So there's a big discord there when people think, because the people who think along those lines, Ellen, as you know, is viewing God as more of a noun, as I like to say, as a person, a place, or a thing that's separate from them, as opposed to what I reply back to them. I'd say, no, view God as a verb, if anything, because it's an energy. So you're not praying for things. I always try to lean to people to say, listen, when you pray, all you're looking to do is just to reconnect, reestablish your connection, reestablish your alignment with your higher source, because that's all we're looking to do. Like you just said, we want the opportunity to be able to manifest. We want, and you can put anything that you want under the word manifest. It doesn't matter what it is, but to do that, we have to be in alignment with source, and to do that, we have to raise vibration. So when we pray, it's not a matter of praying for things. What you're doing is just trying to pray, just to raise your level of awareness, to raise your level of vibration, so it resonates in alignment more, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do pray.
Yeah, I do every single day.
And I think prayer can serve a very personal purpose for different people. So however people are using prayer, continue to do what feels nourishing and fulfilling and, connects you to your higher source. Whatever is working for you in terms of care, in terms of prayer, keep doing that. I received the message over and over that gratitude is the key to everything.
Absolutely. Gratitude
is the key that opens the door to everything, and allow gratitude to be the foundation of your talking to God. That's really, I can speak for hours about this, but that would be kind of the summary line of the message that comes out of the book about speaking to God.
It was having gratitude also shows that you've come to a place that I like to use a lot, and it's called acceptance. And now, some people, when they hear me say and talk about acceptance, they say, so I should just accept when terrorists kill somebody on the other side of the world. I'm like saying, no, you're misreading I'm saying it's when I talk about acceptance, we don't necessarily have to agree with what goes on in the world. It's just that we see it through the eyes of oneness, meaning that it's all part of a divine plan that maybe we don't necessarily understand. And as soon as we label something as, well, that's horrific or that's good or bad, well, all we're doing is casting judgment, no matter if we believe it in our hearts or not. Uh, Even if something that I know is, bad, and so do you know is bad, but when we judge it, we're just falling out of alignment, and we're actually lowering our vibrations because we are judging. Acceptance means that we accept what is in the world. I would say life isn't good or bad, life just is. And when people come to that, then the term acceptance becomes a lot easier for them to relate to.
Right.
But
No,
again, you could see how it's not easy for a lot of people to grasp onto, because everyone's so used to the separation, and they think that, no, that is definitely wrong. No, that's wrong. This is right. And that's where the discord again comes into play.
well, we're brought up in the West in a culture of duality, right? Of good and bad, right and wrong, black and white. So I agree with you. When I used to hate the word acceptance, I thought it meant wave a white flag and roll over.
Yeah, no, actually it
And then
doesn't.
I read A Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle,
Yeah, read a
and
great
came
book.
to see that it's really about not being at war with what is in this moment.
Yeah.
It's about knowing exactly, as you said, that there is a plan, that there is a purpose to what is in this moment. But, and this aligns with the ultimate message of what comes out of a path of oneness. The question is, where do we go from here? And the ultimate message of a path of oneness really talks about you being immensely powerful and having the ability to steer life and direct life in the direction that it's going to go from here. You don't have control over what is true in this moment, but you do have the power to influence where it goes from here. At least through our human senses, that's the way it feels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we raise our own individual thoughts and vibrations, it adds to the collective consciousness, if you may. People ask, why is the world in such disarray? I say, make no mistake about it. It's our own doing. It's our own doing. We made it this way because we've come so far away from any sense of oneness. There's so much separation in the world, which adds to the divisiveness in the world, which adds, in fact, to the hatred, the wars, and so on and so on and so on. So this world, if like people are going to complain about it, it's our own fault. It's our own doing, because there's so much thinking in one capacity, in one way, which is all leaning towards separation. And the only way to change that is when we change our own minds individually. And by doing that, we raise our energy, we raise our thought process. And that in turn, which always gets added to any collective consciousness, hopefully if more and more people can do it, which I know by people reading your book are going to be more in line to raise their vibration, and it's going to be added to the collective consciousness too. So that, I guess, would be our mission, maybe, would you say?
That's you got it, Danny. It's not about my book. It's about the shifting consciousness that you and I both have a lifelong mission of awakening in others, because we've been blessed enough to undergo that kind of awakening inside of ourselves. And I believe that my book and your book as well, that both of our books have the ability to, your books, sorry,
No problem.
plural, have the ability to raise the vibration, to awaken the consciousness shift that's necessary for us to step into the shift in direction that we need as a species, as a planet, to step into a new reality that we so badly need.
Oh boy, don't we? I'll second that, my friend. All right, so it's about at this point of every podcast episode that I want to put you on the proverbial spot, as I like to say. So it's something that I ask my guests, and I just kind of throw it out there to them. It's nothing difficult. It's a simple question, but I would really love to hear your honest response. If it takes one word or if it takes 100 words, I don't care. But what I found from this is that it really like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the perfect way to end a podcast like this. And it really caps the conversation. So I'm going to put it to you like this, my friend. I ask you the question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The question is this, Ellen. Why oneness?
Because it is my deepest truth.
Love that. Love that. Love that. Love that. And if that is your deepest truth, right, you have to express it. And you have in such an elegant way.
Thank you.
Wow. So poignant, spot on. I love it. So my friends, listen, before we wrap this up, how can our friends in oneness find out more about you?
The best way for our beautiful friends listening to find out more about me is to go onto Instagram and follow me. My handle is at A Path of Oneness.
Okay.
My author website is still in the works and will be coming out really soon. It'll be kfeldman.com. But it isn't live yet. It should be in the next week or two. But my book, A Path of Oneness, is being released on February 8th.
Yay!
If you follow me on Instagram, you will have all the information you need to purchase the book on February 8th. I'm so excited to share it with the world.
Yeah. And again, my friends, I read it. It's a beautiful, beautiful read. So I'll be helping you put that out there, my friend, in any way that I can. So I'm just looking forward to it because I know it's going to help our cause, like we said, our shared purpose and our shared cause. So Ellen, I want to thank you so much again. I knew this was going to be just a wonderful, wonderful chat. You are a beacon, my friend, and I'm honored to know you. And now to call you friend, it means the world to me. It truly does. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. So for my friends out there listening to the podcast that I call That Oneness Guy, this has been episode number 40, an interview with spiritual author Ellen K. Feldman. If you like what you've been listening to, please take a moment to subscribe to this feed. As you know, you can find that Oneness Guy on any and all of your favorite podcasting sites and apps. For my YouTube friends, please subscribe to my channel. That includes my podcasts, my vlogs, and all of my many music videos, interviews, and performances. So please do subscribe. Just search for That Oneness Guy. That's all you need to do. For social media friends, you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And just search for That Oneness Guy. I always remind you, please take a look at my website. You can find me at iamgodbook.com, DannyRongo.com, and also thatonenessguy.com. And for Facebook friends out there, I just recently got back on Facebook too, so you can find me there as well too. All right, so take a visit and just look for That Oneness Guy. And my latest book, again, The Ways of Oneness, Helping to Navigate Life, is now available right now on Amazon in a Kindle version. So just please visit Amazon.com, look for my book, and you'll find it. So for now, again, my name is Danny Rongo. I am That Oneness Guy. Please look for my next show. I want to wish you all a blessed Christmas, and may you manifest all of your heart's desires and more in the coming year. And just know, as always, I send you peace, love, light, and continued oneness. Namaste. I'll see you next year. To figure out life and understand all it can be. Just know that it's not about you, it's not about me. Just know that it's not about you, it's not about me. Just know that it's not about you, It's not about me. It's not about me.